All right, guys. So unfortunately, I won't be there today. However, I will be back tomorrow. So CD and FL, see you tomorrow. HFL, I will see you on Wednesday. So we'll mostly focus on continuing on with the material, finishing up chapter 9, and then looking at the DBQ that we've been doing. So looking at the material for today, we finished up. We were talking about the mill girls, and we're talking about the labor group, and what we see is another group of people that are important when it comes to the labor force, and those are going to be the immigrants. The immigrants are another demographic that we are going to talk about throughout the rest of this course, and they migrate over for different reasons. So, we earlier it was the Great Migration in the 1630s. Those, are the Puritans that come over after Plymouth is well established. Then, we have this big migration. All right. Um, the Irish come over because of the potato famine. The Germans come over because of Prussian unification. All right. So when we look at, how they're treated, they're not welcomed very well because they're culturally different. The Germans do not speak English, and the Irish are not Protestant. So neither group is welcomed with open arms. So when we talk about the Irish, their immigration over here, it leads to the installation of the St. James Bible and Protestantism in schools, which we'll definitely get into when we talk about the Age of Reform next chapter. And the Irish are met with opposition because of this cultural difference. We're going to see a church burned to the ground uh, in in Philadelphia. We're going to see riots in Philadelphia. You are going to end up with the Molly Maguires, right? So this is very much there's a lot of discontent. There's a lot of cultural preservation compared to assimilation. In both of these communities are going to settle. Both of these groups are going to settle in their own communities. So you'll have the German neighborhoods. You got to think of the west side of Cincinnati. You got to think of over the Rhine here. Uh, that is very much an ethnic enclave. In terms of the Irish, they're going to settle within communities in Philadelphia, in Boston, South Boston, and they're going to try to very much preserve their culture, and it's one of the reasons why Catholic schools are going to come about. So when we look at cartoons of the day, you see cartoons like this that are going to pop up, and this is very much a pro-immigrant, or I should say pro-American cartoon. The allusion to the Holy Ark of Refuge, the Noah's Ark and Uncle Sam, one of the first iterations of Uncle Sam there, standing on the ark, welcoming these people, one male, one female from a bunch of different countries, and they're all identified by their attire, right? So no oppressive taxes, no expensive kings, no compulsory military service, no nights in dungeons, and you can see the dark cloud on the right side of the screen on the upper right, that shadow that they're trying, the storm that they're trying to escape. So America for a lot of these groups is a place in which they can try to get away from the European lifestyle and into a more American opportunity. And if you look at the sign on the left hand side, you also have there's no such thing as a free lunch. Uh, you know, so while they are going to be getting free land, while they do get free speech, while they do have ballots in which they can vote, there is a consequence for all this, and that consequence more than likely is going to be discrimination, right? So we have another cartoon here in which you have a gentleman with the Protestant Bible protecting these children, all right? And you see the U.S. public school system is rather decrepit. The flag is upside down, a symbol of distress. So the public school system is in distress. It needs to be rehabilitated. All right. You have children that are facing these monsters, these alligators that are um, coming out of the the water. All right. And then you look in the background, and it helps you understand more who this is. All right, the cross on the back. You look at the basilica; it says Roman Catholic on it. All right, so this is the influence of Catholicism on these children. So the public schools is meant to save these children from, now turning it to the side, the Catholic bishops. All right. So socially, you can see the attitude, toward immigrants. That even though they're coming over here to escape a harder life, particularly the Irish, they are going to face opposition because they are culturally different, because there is this fear of Catholic indoctrination. They are going to try their hardest to combat against it. All right. So just switching gears temporarily in terms of what is going on politically within the country. If you remember when I told you after the War of 1812 that the Federalist Party did not exist, the only place it can and does still exist is in the Supreme Court with Chief Justice John Marshall. We talked about Chief Justice John Marshall with Marbury versus Madison. Marshall is a Federalist, and Marshall wants to expand national government power. Right? So these are a list of court cases that Marshall makes the decisions on in which national power is going to be extended. So McCulloch versus Maryland. Maryland, wants to tax corporations. The National Bank is a corporation, so they feel they should be able to tax it. Well, if you tax the National Bank, that goes against the national interest because it does hold the National Reserve, right? So if you're taxing the National Bank, they're paying for it out of their reserve, which is the national government's money. That's not good for the country. Therefore, they can't do it. So, the bank is constitutional, and this adds more power to the national government. In which, the bank is part of taxation, the bank is part of commerce. That's how it fits. So it's that necessary and proper clause that comes back to add more power. Cohens versus Virginia, they can review the decisions of state courts. The national government's above the states. We have a dual court system, but the national government is above the state court system when it comes to particular things. And that also applies to Gibbons versus Ogden. Gibbons versus Ogden, there was one guy that had ferry rights given to him by the national government. Right? Gibbons, Congress gave him the right to transport people from New Jersey to New York, and then the state of New York gave Ogden the right to do the same thing. However, Gibbons sued Ogden, and what Marshall said was, whenever there's a state and federal law conflict, so here both were given permission, but by different entities, the federal law wins out. So Gibbons wins because the national government gave him that exclusive right. All right. Also, interstate commerce goes just beyond buying and selling of goods. So once again, implementation of the necessary and proper or the elastic clause to increase the power of the national government. Fletcher versus Peck. Not only can the Supreme Court look at state court decisions, but they can also look at state laws. And then Dartmouth versus Woodward, private agreements or government agreements with individuals are also under the national government purview. Right. So all of these decisions are involved in increasing national government power, specifically over the states in one particular way. So once again, this is a federalist mindset. Most of these occur in the 18 teens and into the early 1820s. Excuse me. All right. So we're going to finish up with some social. All right. So back to social. And what we're talking about here is we're talking about the change in mindset. And I will go into this next class as well because it's extremely important. When we talk about the American mindset, we are highly individualistic. And most of the reason why is because of the movements that happen, at the end of the market revolution and during the age of reform. So, when we look at, the concept of the free individual, a lot of it comes down to those gentlemen that are pictured there in terms of the transcendentalists, right? The transcendentalists focus on individual outcome, that, we are responsible in terms of, you know, doing what we want to do, not what society tells us to do. So the whole concept of being successful. Ralph Waldo Emerson writes an essay about success. And at the end of it, to know that one life has breathed easier because you have existed. That is the definition. So this brings forward this view of individualism, rugged individualism, is the term to use. So what that means is that we are not acting collectively as a society, right? Uh, I'm not responsible for your outcome. I'm responsible for my outcome. Consequently, I don't necessarily need to help you because you should be able to help yourself, right? That's the personal ideology that develops at this time, and it's this belief that if society is not assisting me, I need to separate from society, right? And part of this works in conjunction with this concept of manifest destiny, right? Because what manifest destiny tells me is that the U.S. is destined to go from sea to shining sea, and if I don't like where I am, I can just keep moving west because the country eventually will follow me, right? And that's where we get this famous painting is, the angel here you see, with, the school Bible under her one arm. So the importance of not just education, but religious education and the telegraph wire. So you see the illumination that is coming to the Great Plains as the telegraph comes, as the train comes, as the stagecoach comes. You have the pioneer family that's at the bottom here, that's a little bit cut off, but they're illuminating the Great Plains and the mountain areas that they know are to the west. And they're chasing off the Native Americans, they're chasing off the buffalo. So that's part of, a lot of what Manifest Destiny is all about. You learn freshman year about white man's burden, right? To bring civilization and to bring religion and Christianity to these unknown areas of the world, and that is a big undertone of Manifest Destiny. So we see the second Great Awakening here, that is going to come, and it comes because it's there. There's this belief that we need to spread religion across the continent, right? And when we look at the religious revival, it comes really in two different parts, right? One is Unitarian, right? Basically, you live a good life, God bestow, it's that whole, you live a good life, you have good values, God bestows wealth upon you, right? So, God gives us free will to behave how we should. If we're behaving well, he will bestow riches upon us. Similar to the whole Puritan mindset of predestination. But the big part of this second great awakening, and once again, I'll get into it when I come back, is this concept of, individual salvation. That faith brings us to God, and I can be baptized and born again, right? I can be baptized and I can be born again, and as long as I have this religious belief, I can be saved. So, we look at the Second Great Awakening as a reinstitution of religion. And how is it different than the First Great Awakening? The First Great Awakening, I'm at God's mercy. The Second Great Awakening, I'm of my own free will when it comes to salvation. I choose to be close to God, and that's how I can be saved. So during the Second Great Awakening, we see, traveling preachers, and it's a little bit similar to the First Great Awakening, where Whitefield and Edwards, but they're mostly located in New England. The one preacher you definitely have to know for this is Charles Grandison Finney. All right. So Charles Grandison Finney, and I'll talk about him again. He, he's extremely important because he ties religion to with morality to the abolition movement and the treatment of human beings. So that whole moral argument begins to form around slavery, which is going to, lead to, the abolition movement gaining more momentum, right? So when we look at the Second Great Awakening, women are going to be more involved, and we're going to see a lot of different sects of Christianity in terms of, we have Methodists, we have Baptists, we have Presbyterians, Episcopalians, all of those listed there. But one denomination that forms in the Midwest is the Mormons. So, Joseph Smith is spoken to by the angel Gabriel. Gabriel gives him these tablets. He's able to interpret these tablets. He's able to write them down, write particular things down. He's able then to create his form of religion, the Mormon Church, or the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints. And he's able to gain a following. And some of his beliefs are they're built upon the traditions of the day, men leading the household, women being their servants, and then it takes it some even further, and that's where he's met with a lot of opposition, right? So, when we look at Smith, he's going to be, he's going to be kicked out of the town in Illinois. He's going to move to Missouri. He's going to be assassinated in Missouri. And then his close follower, Brigham Young, is going to take them out to Utah, right? So it's in conjunction with Manifest Destiny. They've moved to Utah. No one else is in Utah. It's between two mountain ranges. They use irrigation. They're able to create farming. There's mining out there. They're able to gain access to minerals, and they're able to gain an immense amount of wealth, right? But when we look at the Mormon Church, they're not gonna, they move out there. They become isolated because they are heavily persecuted. And one of the reasons why is because of polygamy. And when we look at Utah as a state, their statehood is delayed because of the Mormon Church. They would have been able to become a state around 1850. When California became a state, around when Texas became a state. But because of the controversy surrounding the Mormon Church, they're not going to be allowed to, right? So thank you guys, and I will see you next class.